The ink on my father's signature was barely dry when his trusted business partner looked me dead in the eyes and said, "This $5 million contract now belongs to me, and it's all in your name, sweetheart." My heart stopped. I'm Elena Vargas, 28 years old, and up until that moment, I believed family and loyalty still meant something in business. Let me take you back 2 weeks. My father, Marcus Vargas, 62, had just closed the biggest deal of his life. After my mother passed from cancer 5 years ago, the logistics company he built from one beat-up truck was drowning in medical bills and lost clients. This $5 million distribution contract with a major retailer was supposed to save everything: the business, our home, and the jobs of over 40 loyal employees who had been with Dad since the beginning. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Victor Lang, 55, had been Dad's partner for 15 years. He was the smooth-talking numbers guy, always there with a joke and a pat on the back. To me, he was almost like an uncle. I had helped structure the marketing side of the proposal using everything I learned as a consultant. Because of that, my name ended up on some of the supporting documents as facilitator. Victor insisted it was smart for tax and liability reasons. Dad trusted him completely. But something felt wrong the night we signed the papers at that upscale steakhouse. Victor kept pushing champagne, his smile a little too wide. I noticed him step outside for a hushed phone call, pacing like a man who had just won the lottery. When he came back, Dad suddenly looked pale and exhausted, rubbing his chest. He brushed it off as heartburn from the rich food. Asked Dad later why Victor was so insistent my name stayed on the paperwork. He just squeezed my hand and said, "Victor's family, Elena. He helped build this. Let him handle the details." The next morning my phone rang. It was our company lawyer, voice shaking. Victor had already filed transfer documents claiming the entire contract rights had been moved to a shell company he controlled. And, according to the papers, it was me who supposedly authorized it. How could that be? I never signed anything like that. My hands were trembling as I stared at the scanned documents he emailed me. There was my signature, or at least something that looked exactly like it, right there in black and white. What the hell had Victor done? And why was my father's name nowhere on the new transfer papers? I jumped in my car, racing toward the hospital because Dad had been admitted overnight with chest pains. But before I could even reach the parking lot, another text came through from Victor. "Stay out of this, Elena, or the company, and your father's reputation dies with him." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just business anymore. This was betrayal. And it was only the beginning. What I thought was a celebration dinner turned into the beginning of a nightmare I never saw coming. I rushed into the hospital, my mind spinning with Victor's threatening text. Dad was in a private room on the cardiac floor, monitors beeping softly around him. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, tubes in his arm, face pale against the white sheets. The doctor said it was stress-induced angina, not a full heart attack, but he needed rest and tests. I sat beside his bed, holding his hand, trying to keep my voice steady. "Dad," Victor filed papers. "He's trying to take the entire contract. And somehow my name is on the transfer." Marcus squeezed my fingers weakly. "Victor? No, he wouldn't." His voice was hoarse. "We built this together. He's been with me since the early days when I was driving that old truck and sleeping in motels." I wanted to believe him. Victor had always been there, birthdays, holidays, even helping with Mom's funeral arrangements. But the red flags I'd ignored were now screaming. During the signing dinner, Victor had pushed hard for my name to stay on the documents. "It protects Marcus," he'd said with that charming smile. "You're young, Elena. Modern face of the company." Dad had hesitated for a split second before nodding. Now I was piecing it together. I pulled out my phone and showed Dad the scanned transfer papers. His eyes widened slightly, but he shook his head. "I don't understand. I never agreed to any transfer." That's when the contradictions hit me harder. Victor had been acting strange for weeks, canceling meetings last minute, taking calls in the hallway, even suggesting we celebrate the deal at his lake house instead of the office. Rumors had floated around the industry about Victor's gambling debts, but Dad always waved them off. "He's family," he'd say. "People talk." I stayed with Dad until visiting hours ended, promising to handle things. As I left the hospital, my college friend Sarah, now a sharp forensic accountant, called me back. I had texted her the documents earlier in a panic. "Elena, this looks off," she said. "The signature on the transfer doesn't match the ones I see on your normal contracts. It's close, but the pressure and loops are different. Someone forged this." My blood ran cold. Forged. Under my name. That night, alone in my apartment, I dug through old emails. There it was, a strange message from Victor 2 days before the signing. "Make sure your name stays visible on the facilitator page. It'll make everything smoother." I had assumed it was innocent. The next morning, Victor showed up at the hospital like nothing was wrong. He brought flowers and acted the concerned partner, patting Dad's shoulder. "Hang in there, Marcus. I'll keep the deal moving." But when he caught me alone in the hallway, his mask slipped. His eyes turned cold. "You're smart, Elena, but this is bigger than you. Walk away quietly. Your dad's health can't handle another scandal." I confronted him right there. "You forged my signature." "Why?" He smiled thinly. "Proof is what matters in court, sweetheart. And right now, the papers say you transferred the rights. Fight me, and I'll drag your father's name through the mud. Old side deals, cash under the table, I have records." My chest tightened. Was any of it true? Dad had always been honest, but desperation after Mom's death could push anyone. I left the hospital shaken, heading straight to Sarah's office with every document I could find. We spread them across her desk. Small discrepancies jumped out, dates that didn't line up, routing numbers that led to accounts I didn't recognize. Sarah looked up at me seriously. "Elena, this goes deeper than one contract. I think Victor's been skimming for years." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Another text from Victor. That night, as I sat with Dad again, showing him the strange documents and discrepancies, he suddenly clutched his chest, gasping for air. The monitors went wild. Nurses rushed in. While paramedics wheeled him toward emergency tests, my phone lit up with Victor's message. "Stay out of this, or the company, and your father's reputation, dies with him." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, as the elevator doors closed on my father. What had Victor done to push Dad to this point? And how much did my father actually know? With my father fighting for his life in the ICU, his so-called partner made his move, and it was far more ruthless than I imagined. The doctors stabilized Dad again, but they warned me the stress could trigger something worse. I barely slept, camped out in the waiting room with coffee that tasted like regret. Sarah worked through the night on the documents I'd given her. By morning, she had findings that made my stomach turn. Victor hadn't just tried to steal the contract. He had created a paper trail that painted me as the greedy daughter who pressured her sick father into signing, then transferred the $5 million rights to a shell company called Lang Holdings for a consulting fee of nearly $1.2 million already wired out. Bank statements showed the money moving fast, some of it already spent on luxury items and what looked like gambling payoffs. I felt sick. How could one man I'd known since I was 13 turn so cold? The turning point came when I decided I couldn't just sit and wait for Dad to wake up. I met Sarah at a quiet cafe near the hospital. She slid a folder across the table. "Victor's been siphoning small amounts for at least 4 years. Inflated vendor invoices, ghost employees, creative accounting. The big contract was his golden parachute. He planned to blame you if it blew up." That hit like a punch. All those years Victor played the loyal uncle while quietly draining the company my father built with blood and sweat. I thought about the employees, Maria in accounting who had kids to feed, old Tony who drove routes even when his knees hurt. They didn't deserve this. The stakes skyrocketed that afternoon. Victor started spreading rumors in our tight-knit logistics circle. Mutual contacts texted me, "Heard you tried to cut Victor out after the deal closed. Not a good look, Elena." One even said Victor claimed I forged documents to seize control while Dad was weak. Socially, I was being painted as the ungrateful daughter cashing in on her father's illness. Emotionally, I was breaking. Late one night in the ICU, Dad woke briefly. He looked at me with tired eyes and whispered, "Elena, be careful with Victor. He's not who he seems." Before I could ask more, he drifted back under the medication. That tiny fragment of doubt planted by Victor earlier now grew. Did Dad know something? Had desperation made him compromise? I pushed through. With Sarah's help, I gathered more evidence, hidden emails, time-stamped financial trails showing Victor directing payments to himself, and even a voice recording from the signing dinner where Victor pressured the lawyer to keep Elena's role prominent. The conflict exploded when Victor cornered me outside the hospital. "You're playing a dangerous game, little girl. I have recordings of your father agreeing to certain arrangements to keep the company afloat. Walk away, and I'll let the deal close cleanly. Fight me, and I'll release everything." He slid an envelope into my hands before walking away. Inside were what looked like handwritten notes on Dad's familiar stationery, notes that seemed to approve transferring control and even implicated me as willing. My hands shook. It looked real. The signature matched. The wording sounded like Dad under pressure. Was my father capable of throwing me under the bus to save the business he loved more than anything? I drove home in tears, questioning everything I thought I knew about the two men who had shaped my life. The company, my future, my father's legacy, all of it hung by a thread. Just as I gathered enough evidence to confront Victor directly in his sleek downtown office the next day, he dropped the ultimate bomb across the conference table. "Your father knew everything, Elena. He signed over his own daughter to save himself." The folder he pushed toward me contained what looked exactly like my father's handwritten notes agreeing to the betrayal, dated, detailed, and damning. My world tilted. Was this the truth I'd been blind to? Standing there with proof that could destroy everything I loved, I had one choice: believe the man who raised me or the partner who was smiling like he'd already won. Victor leaned back in his leather chair, the city skyline glittering behind him through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office. The forged notes sat between us like a loaded gun. The handwriting looked identical to Dad's, the slight slant, the way he pressed hard on the pen. My throat tightened. For a split second, I wondered if everything I believed about my father was a lie. But something didn't sit right. The dates on the notes were from the week before the signing, yet Dad had been unusually quiet and tired then. I remembered him rubbing his chest more often, avoiding deep conversations. If he had really betrayed me, why did he look so broken in the hospital? I didn't confront Victor right then. Instead, I played it cool, told him I needed time to think, and left with the folder. Back at Sarah's office, we examined the notes under better light and with digital tools. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "These are good forgeries, but not perfect. The paper stock is slightly different, and the ink age doesn't match the claimed date. Someone rushed this." That gave me a thread of hope. Over the next 48 hours, we built the full picture layer by layer. Sarah uncovered deleted emails Victor thought he had wiped clean, messages where he bragged to a contact about flipping the script on the old man and his daughter. We found the real contract addendum Dad had quietly filed with his personal lawyer weeks earlier, a protective clause no one else knew about. My name had been deliberately placed on certain documents as bait. Dad suspected Victor's greed and wanted to draw it out without tipping him off too early. I visited Dad in the hospital again. This time, he was more alert. In a weak voice, he told me fragments. Victor pushed hard. I added safeguards, didn't want you caught in the middle. It wasn't a full confession, but it confirmed he had been playing a longer game, trying to protect the company and me at the same time. The consequences were already starting to ripple outward. Industry whispers turned into open questions. A few key clients paused their commitments, worried about the internal drama. Employees sensed tension and started asking if their jobs were safe. I felt the weight of it all. One wrong move and decades of my father's work could crumble, taking livelihoods with it. I knew I had to end this. I arranged a private meeting back in Victor's office, but this time I didn't come alone. Sarah joined as my advisor, and I had quietly brought our company lawyer plus a hidden recorder. Victor greeted us with that same smug confidence, waving the forged notes like a victory flag. As the tension thickened and Victor laughed, reaching for more proof, to bury me, the door opened behind him. My father, pale, moving slowly with a walker and an oxygen tube, but determined, stepped into the room. The nurses had reluctantly allowed a short, escorted trip after I explained the urgency. Victor's smile faltered for the first time. Marcus looked straight at his partner of 15 years and said calmly, "Victor, you forgot one crucial detail about that contract." The room went dead silent. Victor's face drained of color as Dad continued, his voice gaining strength. "I never trusted you completely after those vendor discrepancies last year. So, I built in protections you never saw coming." At that exact moment, everything I had been chasing, the red flags, the strange phone calls, the collapse, the threats, the forged notes, hung on the edge of full revelation. Would Dad's hidden safeguards be enough to stop Victor cold, or had the betrayal already gone too far? My father's words hung in the air like a verdict. Victor froze, his smug mask cracking as Marcus continued speaking, voice steady despite the hospital pallor on his face. "Victor, you forgot one crucial detail about that contract," Dad said. "Months ago, after I noticed those small discrepancies in the vendor accounts, I had my personal lawyer add a hidden protective clause. Any unauthorized attempt to transfer or divert the rights automatically voids the entire deal and triggers a full forensic audit, one that exposes every transaction tied to the signatories." Victor's face went white. "That's impossible." "I reviewed every page." "You reviewed what I let you see," Marcus replied quietly. "Elena's name was never the weak point. It was the decoy. I put her on the facilitator documents on purpose, to make you think she was the easy target if your greed got the better of you. The real controlling documents stayed with my lawyer. Your forgeries are worthless." Sarah stepped forward with printed emails and bank trails. "We have everything, Victor. The skimming started 4 years ago. The shell company, the gambling debts you tried to cover with this one big score, it's all documented. The distribution partner has already been notified of the attempted fraud." The logical truth finally clicked into place with crystal clarity. Victor had been planning the theft for months, exploiting Dad's health issues and my involvement. He forged my signature thinking he could pin the transfer on my inexperience while keeping Dad's hands clean enough to avoid immediate suspicion. The handwritten notes were sophisticated fakes he prepared as backup. The strange phone call at the signing dinner? He was confirming the wire instructions with his shell company contact. Dad's chest pains and collapse? Pure stress from sensing Victor's growing desperation but not wanting to confront him until the deal was secured and protections were locked in. Every red flag, every threat, every planted doubt was Victor's attempt to divide and conquer. There were no missing pieces. The audit would confirm it all. Victor tried to bluster, but the hidden recorder captured every word. Security escorted him out as the lawyer called the authorities. The $5 million contract was saved, the protective clause ensuring the original terms stood firm with the Vargas family fully in control. The emotional release hit me like a wave. Tears streamed down my face as I turned to Dad. He pulled me into a weak but fierce hug. "I never doubted you for a second, kid. I kept you in the dark to protect you. I didn't want Victor suspecting you knew anything. You're the best part of this legacy." Relief flooded through me, washing away the doubt and fear. The man who raised me hadn't betrayed me. He had risked everything to shield our family. In that moment, our bond felt stronger than ever. No more shadows, no more questions. But the story didn't end with the reveal. In the weeks that followed, the consequences unfolded realistically and completely. Victor was arrested on charges of fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. The district attorney moved quickly once the audit results came in, showing years of siphoning. He lost his partnership share, faced civil lawsuits from the distribution company for breach of trust, and had to liquidate assets, including his lake house, to cover mounting legal fees. Socially, the industry turned on him fast. Old colleagues who once golfed with him now refused his calls. His reputation as a reliable partner was destroyed overnight. His wife filed for separation, and his adult son publicly distanced himself on social media, embarrassed by the scandal that tainted the family name. For us, the aftermath brought both challenge and growth. The company survived but needed restructuring. We let go of 2 inflated positions Victor had created and brought in tighter financial oversight. Several employees learned the full story and stayed, expressing gratitude that the Vargas family fought for the business instead of folding. Dad's health stabilized with proper medication and reduced stress. The secured deal proceeds helped pay off the last of the medical debts and fund better care. Personally, my life transformed. 6 months later, I stood beside Dad at our main warehouse as the first major shipment under the now secure contract rolled out. The trucks bore our family name with pride. Dad, looking stronger, handed me the official leadership papers. This was always meant to be ours, together. You've earned it. I looked at the bustling warehouse, the loyal team waving as the trucks departed, and felt a quiet strength I hadn't known before. The betrayal had nearly cost us everything, but it revealed who we truly were. If someone ever tries to steal your future, make sure you have the receipts and the courage to use them. Our family didn't just survive. We came out stronger. And that, more than the money, was the real victory.